Welcome to another video from gardeningwithjason.com. Now, back down at the plot, and you can see that things are happening. We have the onion sets that I planted a while ago are starting to come up. The perennial problem with mare's tail is still here, and all I'm doing is pulling up as much of it as I can and putting it into these plastic bags. I'm not composting it, obviously, because that can make it spread. So mare's tail, dock, dandelion, any perennial weeds go into this plastic bag where they'll rot down, and when the tips finally reopen, I'll take them down the tips and get rid of them. But you can see the onions are coming up quite nicely. They're doing fairly well. They're I've had a looking at the rows, I've had quite a high germination rate there, so I'm quite pleased with that. And if we look over here, these are the onions that I planted back in I think it was November, about November last year, and you can see they're much bigger, obviously, but they seem to be doing quite well. Now what they are starting to do, and you have to excuse me while I try and show you this, is you can see there, this is an onion flower. Now whilst the onion flowers are very pretty, if you like onion flowers, you can buy ornamental versions, alliums, which are very pretty, flower nicely in your garden. For your eating onions though, you want to take those off, because what will happen with those is they'll take energy away from the bulb, and it would mean that the bulb doesn't form as large as it could do. Now rather than just throwing them away, I've only got the one there, so it's not particularly worth keeping, but what you can do is you can actually cook these. You can put them into like a stir fry or something like that. They're actually quite a delicacy, and if you ever found them anywhere where you could buy them, they'd be quite expensive. They're usually found in high-end restaurants. So we're just going to pinch that off. There you are. That's pinched off, and just, oh, it's very oniony. So anyway, that's that. So look out for those on your onions. They will start to appear now. Keeping them well watered will help prevent it a little, but otherwise just pull them off when you see them. Same with your garlic. This is my garlic, planted last year. Not doing too badly. It's looking slightly unwell in places, but the dry weather hasn't helped it too much. But anyway, keep an eye out on these again for the flowers, and get rid of them when they appear. Now I'm wondering, is there a word for that pleasure you feel when your seeds sort of poke their head above the soil? I don't know if there is a word in existence. Maybe you know, and if you do, please let me know, because it's certainly something I am feeling right now, against all odds, and I must admit I am quite surprised. We have some seeds coming up. You can see them there. That's snowball turnip, so that's a white turnip, and then in the middle here we have some beetroot. You can just see them poking their heads above the soil, and then over in the corner here we have some chard. This is a giant chard, so let's see what that comes out as. But as I said, I'm quite excited. Not entirely sure that's a beetroot. That looks like a weed. Let's get rid of that. But anyway, so these are starting to come up, and you remember I didn't plant these too long ago, so that's very exciting. And next to it is an empty bed that's waiting for me to bring some brassicas down, which I will do at some point. But you can see there are footmarks in that. I'm assuming a local cat has had a meander around across it, looking at the size and the distribution of the footprints there. Oh dear. Going over here, we have more stuff coming up, and look at all these. And these certainly aren't weeds, but you can certainly see my very, very poor seed sowing, because what we got Mizuna, turnip, and pak choy. Pak choy's on the end there. You can see it about here. That's coming up. In the middle here is meant to be Mizuna, and then over this side is some more turnips. But what I'm wondering about, there's a bit of mare's tail, so I'll just pull out as much of that as I can and put it in my plastic bags. What I'm wondering is I've got all these little things coming up here. Now that's too widely scattered for my poor seed sowing, so I don't know what that is. Absolutely no idea what that is. So I'm gonna have to wait for it to grow a little bit bigger. Either I've really badly sown the Mitsuna seeds, and I mean really badly because they are all over this bed. So I don't know there. We're gonna have to wait and see what it is. There's some more mare's tail. Oh, you can see I've got a bit more of the roots out there. Just unfortunately, mare's tail's been around since before the dinosaurs. We're not likely to get rid of it anytime soon. You can use some fairly serious weed killers on them, but to be honest, with the effect that they'll have on the environment, I'd rather not. So all you need to do is just keep pulling out. Every time you see it, pull it up, and eventually, and we're not talking soon, we're talking a couple of years, if not more, it will kill it. But you just got to keep, every time it raises its ugly head, pull it up. I've been doing that on these beds. I've been coming down every 2 or 3 days and just ripping it all up, and that seems to be keeping it under control. In the corner here, and there's more blooming mare's tail. It's absolutely everywhere. And there's some more there. Trouble is it grows in between your seeds, and so when you're pulling it up, you end up disturbing your seeds, which is a bit of a problem. Let's just go and put this in my bag of despair there. Right, now in this bed here, before we were distracted, we can just about see peas poking their heads above the ground. So far there's not many of them, and they are a hardy pea, so that they will be okay. But there's not many of them, so I'm going to give it another week and we'll see what the germination rate's like. And if it's quite poor, then I'll put some more seeds in the ground. This bed here, again, you can just about see the beetroot poking its head above the soil there. So there is life in this bed. Some beetroots coming up, which is nice. So I can look forward to that again soon. And in these next two beds, you can just about see more mare's tail. Do you know what? I walked through these beds before I started filming, didn't see any mare's tail, and now suddenly I can see it all. It's frustrating. But here you can just about see the broad beans. Again, broad beans, these are a hardy version, due to planting out early in the season. So whilst there is some cold coming, they should be okay. We will see. I might put some fleece over them anyway. The only trouble with fleece is that sometimes you can find sort of slugs or snails come underneath it. But anyway, the broad beans are coming up. Germination rate at the moment, bit hard to tell. It looks like approximately half have poked their heads above the soil, but we need to wait and see there, because obviously more could come up, and if more don't come up, I will put some more I'll put some more seeds in there and see what happens. Now over in this raised bed I planted some potatoes, and you can see that they are rearing their heads. Again, relatively quite a few of them, so which is relatively good. Now there is cold weather coming towards the end of this week, early next week. They are predicting cold weather and some frosts. These will have a little bit of extra protection because they are in a raised bed. However, you do need to earth up your potatoes, which basically means cover them with soil. I've got some compost in my compost bin. These are going to get covered with compost in a little while, and that will protect these from the cold. What happens if these get cold and damaged by frost is they'll go black, wither, and it can potentially kill off the potato plant. These fresh shoots aren't particularly hardy, and they will be damaged by the cold, so just cover them up. So I'm going to put probably about 3 or 4 inches of compost on top of these. Don't worry about sort of thinking, oh no, I'm going to smother the plants. They will grow through it and they'll continue to push up, and you'll get a good crop out of it. But do protect your potatoes. It's very, very important, because you are going to find damage to them from the frost. And if I just go over to this other bed, This bed's got potatoes in as well, and you can see they're the same. Also, it's got more mare's tail in it. This stuff is everywhere. Oh, look at that. Decent sized root off that one. That should teach it a lesson. Oh, there's another one. Right, now, mare's tail is actually quite high in silica, so it can make a good like compost tea to feed certain plants. It can also be dried and used as a herb, so it's not completely useless. If you need silica in your diet or anything like that, mare's tail as a tea or something like that is absolutely perfect. But for us as gardeners, it's frustrating and irritating. Now you can see over here the blossom's starting to come to an end. Let's have a so look, you can see there they are. That's the end of the flower blossom, but you can see apples are starting to form. What I am thinking about doing this year is thinning the apples out. I mean, part of me says no, don't do it, but part of me says if I do that I'll get a better crop. So I think I'll do that a bit later on in the year when they start to form. So I'm going to have a look and make sure they're okay, and then I can thin them later on. Now we're just going to go over here, so I want to show you something on this apple tree. You can see on the leaves here there's sort of some curling, and if I'm just trying to show you underneath, you can see, I don't know if you can see in there, you can see there's some aphids. Now aphids generally in mild amounts they aren't a problem, but what happens is they end up taking over the tree and really sort of hindering its growth. You'll typically find them on new growth. Black currants are also badly affected. But you can see here, these leaves, there's no aphids on them. These are these sort of older leaves from last year's growth. But you can see here, this is the new growth because it's still green, and you can see that there's aphids moving in on it. So what you need to do is, you can see, just let me show you over here. You can see the damage on these leaves here. This is quite bad from it. I'm not sure if this one's actually flowered yet. I don't think it has. So anyway, but you can see the damage is quite bad. So what you need to do is you need to spray them or otherwise treat them. Companion planting will help, though I must admit I've not seen as many insects around this year as I would normally. So you can do some companion planting to attract predators. So plant things like your lavender, marjoram, thyme, nasturtiums, all that sort of thing. Nasturtiums act as a trap crop, so plant them a little bit away from your apple trees and the aphids will go to there, and then you can just destroy the nasturtiums. One thing you do need to be aware of is ants will farm the aphids, and basically they will kill the predators, and they will basically encourage the aphids to breed, because what the ants do is they harvest nectar from the basically they harvest aphid poop, to put it very bluntly. So but the thing is they kill off the predators, so they kill off the beneficial insects that we're all trying to attract into our garden. There's plenty of other things for ants to eat, but obviously they quite like this because it's a bit of a sweet treat. So what you can do, and you can see there from last year, there's a grease band. You can buy grease bands for your trees. Basically stick them on the tree and it will stop the ants from going up and down and getting into the trees. The ants get stuck on there, and you can see that tree's got support on it. I've also put one around the support, so those are going to get replaced fairly soon. And same with, see these supports here, they will need grease bands on because otherwise ants will just go up those. And that will stop the ants from farming the aphids. The other alternative, which I'm now going to bring down here and try next time I come, is to use neem oil. Now you can buy neem oil off Amazon, and you can get hold of a very gentle Castile soap. It's very natural, it's gentle, it's not full of chemicals, it's not going to harm your plants. Mixing the two of those together and diluting them with water will create quite an effective spray. So I'm actually going to try that on this tree. Bizarrely enough, this apple tree is much more susceptible to aphids than the other one over there. I think that one's a Discovery and this one's a James Grieve or something like that. I bought them both from Asda many years ago, but this one for some reason seems to be a lot more susceptible to them. I don't know whether it's closer to the ant's nest or whether it's just naturally that way, but it does need treating. You can see there's quite a bit of leaf curl around, so I'm going to have to take care of that fairly soon. These two beds I put some potatoes in just to, well, I had to put them somewhere, so I put them somewhere in there. You can see the currant bushes are coming up really well. Now those are baby red currants, and you can see that there's going to be quite a prolific crop looking at that. The tree does need a bit of a prune later in the year, and this is a black currant, and again that's black currant as well. You can see again got lots and lots of young berries coming up on it. The gooseberries so far are looking good, and again if we come in there you can see some young gooseberries, so they're looking nice. And I think this was a Tayberry or Loganberry, I can't actually remember, but to be fair they're fairly similar anyway, so we'll see what they are. And but there's lots of flowers. This was planted I think 18 months, 2 years ago at the most, and you can see it's gone from, it was a poundland buy, so it was, you know, a stick a foot long, but it's grown quite nicely, and I do need to give it a bit more training because it's gone absolutely wild. So we're going to sort that out as well. There's always loads to do down at the allotment, so you know, always keeps us busy. The summer fruiting raspberries seem to be looking okay. There's quite a lot of flowers on them, so I'm going to try harvest. I'm going to see what they do this year. To be really honest with you, the crop that these have produced has been really poor. The berries are very small. I don't know whether this is a wild variety or something like that. They haven't been very good. They've been very small, and they pretty much haven't really ripened. So this is their last year to do something interesting, because otherwise I think I need to take them out and well, basically they're quite in the way there, to be perfectly honest. So I might take them out and replant some other raspberries somewhere else. This one is I think this is Belder Boskop, this apple tree, and again you can see it's suffering with aphids. You can see them under there, there's loads of them, so I do need to come down and give them all a good spray. And I think that one of these is a Keswick Codlin, and I can't remember what the other one is off the top of my head. I'd have to have a look. But again, you can see these are suffering a little with aphids, so they're going to have to get banded and probably sprayed just to make sure they're okay, because these are quite young trees. They're only a couple of years old, and you can see they're producing some fruit there. So I'm going to let them produce some fruit this year, mainly because they're heritage varieties and I'm really quite excited about them, and I want to see what they do. So let's see what happens with them, and then we'll train them along as part of our living fence. And finally, over here in the herb garden, I've been pulling up mint like no tomorrow. It's blooming everywhere, it really is. So there's lots and lots of mint, and it's just started growing into out of the beds and into there. So I've just been removing that, and you can see the chives are coming up, thyme, parsley, sage, there's fennel over there, there's some more parsley. So it's all looking really good, and the angelica in the middle is putting on a fine display, though it is leaning slightly. That might have to get moved at the end of this growing season, because I think it might be a bit might not have enough depth there for its roots. But it's all looking good, and as always down at your allotment there's an awful lot to do. So things you've got to do fairly quickly. earth up your potatoes, get them protected, because cold weather is coming and it will damage your potato crop. Sort out your seeds, get planting, get stuff in the ground, sort your beds out, and basically try and take the best care of your plot as you can. Keep the weeds down, pull up the perennial weeds as soon as you spot them and dispose of them. Put them in a plastic bag like that, or put them in your garden waste bin at home. And with the other weeds, you can just sort of hoe them and leave them on the surface. But with your perennial weeds, get as much root out as you can and get rid of them, because they will spread, and they will spread really, really badly. But you can see we're looking good down the plot today, and it's time to just water everything, earth up the potatoes, and that should be plenty to keep me going for today. So let me know how you're getting on with your garden and your allotment, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.